Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth before these joint congressional hearings, so help you God? Thank you.
Sige po, maaari na po kayo magpatuloy. Pakipindot po, ma'am.
Magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat. Salamat po sa pangdinig na ito. Kung mamarapatin niyo po, mag-uumpisa ako by going back to the time that the ABS-CBN Holdings PDRs were issued in 1999. Kung matatandaan niyo po, at that time, the Philippines, together with its Asian neighbors, were all reeling from the effect of the Asian financial crisis in 1997. So our capital market was really very much affected. The gains that we have realized in the early 1990s were all eroded. So we had a lot of companies that needed financing, but the traditional sources of financing like equity and debt were all inadequate at that point in time. Banks were not lending, and if they were on very steep grounds. So this is the milieu when the PDRs were introduced in the Philippines. Hindi po ito bago or novel. This is something that has been used in other financial markets at my counterparts po ito in other countries, including, of course, the American depositary receipts. So this was supposed to be very convenient and beneficial to most companies in the Philippines. First, for the reason na you don't have to partake or to dispose of your ownership in order to raise financing. In the same manner, it is beneficial. This is better than debt because if it is a debt, then you have to pay the principal and interest regardless of the performance of the underlying shares or the shares that you use to secure your obligation. So this is something that was both beneficial to the capital market, to the companies that needed financing, as well as, of course, to the government. So as far as the capital market of the Philippines was concerned, it did perk up the market because of additional securities that were floated and being sold in the market. On the part of the Philippine government, it was increased economic activity for a lot of companies. That, of course, translates to additional collection of taxes. Ang aligasyon po ay ang PDRs ng ABS-CBN Holdings are violative of the Philippine Constitution. Kung matatandaan po natin, the provision that really covers mass media is found in Section 11, Paragraph 1, Article 16 of the Philippine Constitution. Ang sinasabi po nito is that the ownership and management of mass media shall be limited to citizens of the Philippines and to corporations, cooperatives, or associations wholly owned and managed by such citizens. So dalawa lang po ang pinagbabawal. You have ownership and management of mass media companies. Against this test, the question that we ask is whether or not the ABS-CBN Holdings PDRs allow the participation of foreign nationals in the ownership and management of a mass media company. So from the very outset, gusto ko po lamang idiin na magkaiba po ang ABS-CBN Holdings Company sa ABS-CBN Broadcasting Corporation. Yung holdings po own shares in ABS-CBN Broadcasting. Hindi lang po ABS-CBN Holdings ang may-ari ng shares ng ABS Broadcasting dahil marami pong ibang shareholders ang ABS-CBN Broadcasting. It is broadcasting that is engaged in mass media. ABS-CBN Holdings is a purely holding company. Ang activity po nito, because it is a holding company, is just to invest in shares. So in this case, the PDRs were issued by ABS-CBN Holdings to investors under the terms of what we call the PDR instrument. This is a contract po between the investors of the PDRs and the issuer, who is ABS-CBN Holdings Corporation. This contractual arrangement has nothing to do with ABS-CBN Broadcasting because ang parties po ng kontratang ito, which is covered under the PDR instrument, are the investors and ABS-CBN Holdings. Hindi po party sa PDR instrument ang ABS-CBN Broadcasting. Ang only link po, if you can call it a link, is that ang PDR investors po, when they invest in the PDRs, they track the performance of the ABS-CBN Broadcasting kasi doon po nanggagaling ang kita ng ABS-CBN Holdings. Being a holding company, it only derives income through its ownership in other companies in the form of dividends and other distributions from its investments. So yun lang po, kasi kung mag-i-invest sila sa PDRs, they have to know kung anong value ng PDRs, and that was dependent on the performance of the underlying shares. Pero wala po silang pakialam sa ABS-CBN Broadcasting. Hindi po sila partido sa PDR instrument, which is the contract between the investors and ABS-CBN Holdings. Wala pong, as we call it in legal terms, wala pong privity of relationship. So kung hindi man po tumupad ang ABS-CBN Holdings sa kanyang mga obligasyones under the PDR instrument, wala pong right ang PDR holders to proceed against ABS-CBN Broadcasting. So ang tanong po lamang is, does the investment of foreign nationals in the PDRs issued by ABS-CBN Holdings violate the Philippine Constitution? Your answer to this can be yes, only if such investors own shares, which is the test of ownership, or they do participate in the management of ABS-CBN Broadcasting. At ang sabi ko po kanina, magkaiba po ang dalawang korporasyon na to. Wala pong pakialam ang mga investors sa ownership at sa management ng ABS-CBN Broadcasting Company. Ang rights po ng PDR holders are only against ABS-CBN Holdings, hindi po against ABS-CBN Broadcasting, and wala po silang rights, whether of ownership or management, of the mass media corporation, which is ABS-CBN Holdings Broadcasting Company. So, para po malinawan kung ano itong mga PDRs na to, there are tests that are employed to determine whether there is a violation of the Philippine Constitution. The first test is the test of ownership, and secondly, of management. So whether they have ownership rights over the mass media company, that is ABS-CBN Broadcasting Corporation, we should really understand the nature of the PDRs. PDRs are purely financial instruments. Hindi po siya shares, hindi po siya nakakaboto sa ABS-CBN Broadcasting, at hindi po siya nakakapag-participate sa management ng ABS-CBN Broadcasting. So in this case, being a financial instrument, ang only expectation po ng investors in PDRs would be, of course, whatever cash distribution and gains they can derive in the trading and transfer of ownership of the PDRs. So, akin pong inuulit, ang ownership po nila ay sa PDRs, hindi po sa shares ng ABS-CBN Broadcasting. Wala po silang right to participate in the management of ABS-CBN Broadcasting because hindi po sila shareholders nito, and they have no rights whatsoever, whether granted by way of contract, arrangement, or any form of understanding, to participate in the voting as shareholders or to direct or cause the voting of the shares in ABS-CBN Broadcasting. So as far as the Philippine regulatory agencies are concerned, this has been recognized by the Securities and Exchange Commission as something which is different from the shares of ABS-CBN Broadcasting because it has approved the registration of ABS-CBN Holdings PDRs and ABS-CBN Broadcasting shares. Magkaiba po sila. They have separate registrations, they have separate trading, and because these PDRs have also been listed and traded in the Philippine Stock Exchange. So pwede po kayong bumili ng ABS-CBN shares sa stock market, pwede din kayong bumili ng PDRs ng ABS-CBN Holdings sa stock market. Magkaiba po silang dalawa. There is no transfer of rights from the shareholders of ABS-CBN broadcasting to the PDR holders. Because of these separate and distinct characters, the owners of the PDRs na inisyu po ng ABS-CBN holdings ay hindi po pwedeng sabihin na may-ari ng shares ng ABS-CBN Broadcasting Corporation. So for the owners of ABS-CBN Broadcasting shares, such as ABS-CBN Holdings, ang requirement po ng ating batas at ng mga interpretasyon ng ating mga desisyon ng Korte Suprema is that they should have full beneficial interest in the mass media company para po maging compliant with the Philippine Constitution. The full beneficial interest test was employed by, of course, the two well-known cases dealing with nationalization and citizenship. Ito po yung kaso ni Gamboa at ang kaso ni Roy versus Herbosa. Simple lang po ang pagka-discuss sa case ng Roy versus Herbosa. You have rights to participate in the ownership of the mass media company only if the shares have been assigned to you or the voting rights have been assigned to you. Hindi po yan binigay sa PDR holders. Ang bumoboto po ng mga shares ay ang ABS-CBN Holdings, hindi po ang investors ng PDRs. So, hindi po talaga pwedeng sabihin that they are owners of shares or equity in the mass media company, which is a restricted business insofar as the Constitution is concerned. Yung other test po, apart from ownership, in the case of full beneficial ownership, ay yung pong right ng PDR holders to receive dividends and other fruits and accessions. Ang sabi po ni Roy versus Herbosa, kung ikaw ay entitled to receive the dividends from the mass media company or any forms of profits, accessions, or fruits, then the beneficial ownership lies in the PDR holders and not in the owner of the shares. Wala pong ganong assignment ang PDR instrument na ibinibigay ang right to dividends and any fruits or accessions to the PDR holders. What they are entitled to would be cash distribution from ABS-CBN Holdings Corporation. Yung cash distribution po, pwede pong manggaling at in most cases nanggagaling din sa dividendo ng ABS-CBN. Pero ang the one entitled to those dividends ay hindi ang ABS-CBN Holdings PDR holders, but ABS-CBN Holdings. So para po niyang ni-receive, the one entitled, because this is a shareholder right, the one entitled is ABS-CBN Holdings. Hindi po niya ina-assign ang kanyang rights to dividends to the PDR holders. Ang kanya lang pong commitment is that pagkatapos kung makareceive ng income, and because this is a holding company and income is derived from their ownership or investment in shares, I will get my operating expenses, I will get the amount that I need for my taxes, I will need the amount that I need to discharge my loans, at kung may sobra, those are the ones that will be distributed in the form of cash distribution to the PDR holders. Kung for any reason po ABS-CBN Holdings does not do this and does not pay the PDR holders, the right of action of PDR holders is against ABS-CBN Holdings and not against ABS-CBN Broadcasting Corporation. Even if ABS-CBN Broadcasting Corporation earns a lot of profits, even if it accumulates a lot of profits, wala pong right ang PDR holders to compel the declaration of those dividends kasi hindi po sila shareholders. Ang kanila lang inaasahan ay ang distribution ng ABS-CBN Holdings pagkatapos itong bayaran ang lahat ng kanyang pangangailangan at kung may sobra man po ay yun ang i-distribute sa PDR holders. So as far as the issuance of the PDRs are concerned, the PDR instrument does not transfer any voting rights, especially for the right to vote directors. Kung matatandaan niyo po, the case of Gamboa versus Teves, yung mahaba-habang desisyon ni Justice Carpio, ang kanila pong pinag-usapan lang is ano ba ang control na pinagbabawal ng Constitution. The control na pinagbabawal ng Constitution is the control and more principally the power to elect the directors. Bakit po just the vote on the directors? Kasi the vote on directors is crucial in the sense that it is the board of directors that control the affairs of the corporation, and they are the ones that manage the corporation. So anyone who has the power to vote directors has control over the corporation. Wala pong ganong right ang PDR holders. Wala po silang right to vote the directors. Wala rin po silang right to direct ABS-CBN to vote in any particular way, including, of course, the voting in the case of the election of directors. Ang PDR holders po are what we call passive investors. Hindi po sila nakikialam sa ownership and management. The commitments of ABS-CBN Holdings is really just to make cash distribution. Because it is a financial instrument, ang expectation lang ay financial rewards. So they can do this two ways. Dahil po listed ang PDRs ng ABS-CBN Holdings, they can trade those PDRs in the market. And they can have, of course, gains arising from the trading of their PDRs. The other way is, of course, wait for the cash distribution insofar as ABS-CBN Holdings are concerned. So the dividends received by ABS-CBN Holdings from ABS-CBN Broadcasting Corporation are those that are relied upon by the PDR holders. Pero hindi po ito pass-through. Some people are saying it is a pass-through. Hindi po ito pass-through. Kasi para po yung ni-receive ko. Kung ako ay shareholder ng isang kumpanya, ni-receive ko yan, sa akin po yung dividendo na yon. And after paying all my expenses and all my obligations, I can commit to give the balance to anyone. Kasi sa akin po yun. Ako ang may-ari ng mga dividendo. And that is exactly what happens in the case of the PDR holders. So, as I said previously, kung hindi po yan bayaran ng ABS-CBN Holdings, hindi po sila pwede magdemanda against ABS-CBN Broadcasting Corporation because wala po silang right to proceed against CBN Broadcasting directly. Kung hindi po sila satisfied sa kanilang investments, wala po yung direct action against the mass media company. Pwede nilang ibenta yung kanilang PDRs or pwede nilang i-exercise yung exercise rights, which is, of course, to acquire the shares kung sila ay qualified, kung sila ay Filipino, at kung hindi man, na ang kanilang right lang ay to obtain the proceeds of the sale of those shares. So as you can see, there is no direct link to the shares of ABS-CBN Broadcasting Company. So all of these factors that I have discussed only point to one fact. The PDRs have a life of its own. Hindi po yan naka-attach sa shares ng ABS-CBN Broadcasting. They trade independently. There are financial and cash distributions which are separately given by ABS-CBN Holdings. At sila po ay hindi talaga magkapareho. I think the confusion in the layman's eyes is always na parang magkapareho yung PDR holders at yung shareholders ng ABS-CBN Broadcasting Corporation. Magkaiba po kasi ang ABS-CBN Holdings is a shareholder of ABS-CBN Broadcasting. The PDR holders are owners of financial instruments issued by ABS-CBN Holding Company. The other issue po is yung management ng mass media companies. So, meron bang right ang mga PDR holders to participate in the management of ABS-CBN Broadcasting, which is the mass media company? Wala po, because the management lies and is under the control of the board of directors of ABS-CBN Broadcasting Corporation. Hindi po sila shareholders. Neither were they given any right in the PDR instrument to cause the election of the board of directors or to cause the voting in one way or another of the shares owned by ABS-CBN Holdings. They do not have the power to vote and certainly do not have the power to vote directors. Pwede po ba silang ma-appoint in management positions? Kung talaga pong qualified, pwede naman pong ma-appoint in management positions. But the fact na meron silang PDR is not their entitlement to be appointed or elected to management positions of the mass media company. If they so happen to be PDR directors, PDR holders, and they're foreign nationals, and they do participate or appointed in management positions, hindi po yan dahil sa PDRs. Because the PDRs do not have any right to be appointed, elected as directors, or appointed to management positions. At ang isa pong naming gustong sabihin is, yung ABS-CBN Holdings PDRs ay registered po sa Securities and Exchange Commission under our securities regulations. They are also listed in the Philippine Stock Exchange. And if you know the scrutiny that this government agency and market authority does in doing registration and the listing, you will know that this company, ABS-CBN Holdings, subjected itself to the full scrutiny, review, regulation, and supervision of the Securities and Exchange Commission and the Philippine Stock Exchange. Kung meron po silang ginagawang kalokohan or circumvention of the Philippine Constitution, they would not subject themselves to this kind of scrutiny. Because lahat naman po ng ginagawa ng ABS-CBN Holdings as issuer of PDRs ay dinidisclose naman po to this government agency and market authority. Hindi po sila nagtatago ng kahit ano because this is their obligation under the law to make material disclosures. In issuing all of these securities, ang ABS-CBN po Holdings have, in good faith, complied with all the requirements of the government regulatory agencies that have jurisdiction over
Mr.
them.
Chairman.
Yes, Vice Chairman Remulla.
The presentation seems to be very long. Are they winding up already or
Yeah.
mahaba pa?
Salamat po.
Ma'am, gaano kahaba pa po yung
I'm
presentation?
closing na po.
Yes, ma'am. Please continue.
So I just want to close by saying that their acts are all above board. They have relied on the approvals and the permits and licenses issued by the Securities Exchange Commission and the Philippine Stock Exchange. If for any reason those decisions are wrong and the courts declare that they are wrong, we have po in good faith relied on them. So it's going to cause some effect on the Philippine capital market dahil po it will erode the investors' confidence in decisions made by these government agencies and market regulation authority. So yun lang po ang gusto naming sabihin na wala po kami itinatago. We have not circumvented the Philippine Constitution and all the terms and conditions of the PDRs have been fully disclosed and of course evaluated by the government agencies and the market authority. Marami pong
Mr.
salamat.
Chairman. Thank you.
Marami pong salamat.